Alright. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for participating in our research.
Interview.
What is research? For interview session. So first we will go for demographic question. So can you tell a little bit about your background of education?
My background of education is bachelor degree of education in chemistry.
Okay, thank you. Are you involving with teaching in science related subject in the future?
Yes, I am, and it might be science subject or chemistry. It depends on availability of the school later on.
Alright, thank you. So now we move to the section 1. Azam, you want to proceed?
Okay. For the first question for session 1, what do you understand about gamification?
Well, in my opinion, the gamification is such a powerful tool to drive user or student engagement. It is the injection of game design elements or and principles into non-game contexts. Many games promote communication, cooperation, and even competition amongst the players. So now we took the elements and applying it on teaching and learning contexts such as storytelling, reward system, and feedback.
Okay. Okay, thank you. For the second question, do you have any experience in applying gamification in your lesson?
Experience. Yes. Before this, I gave my students rewards whenever they manage to get answer correctly, and also when they win the activity. But that one is not using technology. It's just a simple rewarding system in the classroom. And after the ODS session, I just did giving them badges, like giving stars on the the answer they gave using Padlet. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Proceed to the next question. Yeah. Or Faiz?
It's okay, but then
Gitu.
Okay, okay,
Alright.
okay.
So we will move to the
Yeah.
second section, which is gamification in science classroom. Can you list any technology you have used in classroom or at school or in micro teaching? How do you find this technology? And is it easy to use or not?
Like I said before, when we were in classroom, we didn't use much technology because of the lot of things to be considered. The internet and the technology that have inside the schools are quite outdated. And sometimes you want to use the projector also cannot because yeah, it's quite outdated. And they dah rosak lagi semua tu.
Yes, yes.
So
Faham?
I only use technology when it comes online distance learning. We started MCO back in the March, I guess. So I'm using quizzes and also Padlet. So quizzes is
Ah,
like it's like same like Kahoot. So I am very sure that you guys play Kahoot a lot of times. So it's just the same as quizzes, but the graphic inside the quiz is much more interesting than Kahoot. And also Padlet is like a very simple platform to discuss any topic that you want to assign to the student. So they will discuss on their opinions or whatever they want to talk on the like a platform or any like walls. We use yeah, they call it walls. So they paste their opinions so you can either check whether they're correct or not. So you can give them stars.
alright, thank you. So, next question. What do you think of implementation gamification in science learning? Are you ready to implement in the future?
So what do I think about the gamification technique? Okay, implementing gamification in science learning is very conducive. When we talk about conducive, but it is need to come with the technology, um, the latest technology to make sure dia competent dengan kita punya teknologi yang sekarang lah, sebab dekat sekolah teknologi yang diorang guna semua outdated. Okay. Bukan nak kutuk tapi yes it is. Their computers quite like old design, so sometimes it took time to open the computer, so it is quite time consuming. So to implement the gamification in science learning or any teaching and learning session in the classroom, we need to reboot all the system, all the devices first. So if we can get a new device, so we can reduce the time consuming, because when we go to the classroom, we don't have much time to set up all the internet, the device to be ready. And it is much better than the old school teaching and learning styles, which is chalk and talk, and it's quite boring. Moreover, it is a science subject. For some students, science is they don't have much interest on science. So as a teacher, we need to find another way to make it a lot better teaching and learning environment. So we use the gamification technique to make sure that students they can cooperate with the other students, they can compete to each other. So yeah, those elements in a gaming technique or gamification technique. And also we can avoid spoon feeding student, because we know that students have the availability or the accessibility to use internet on their homes. So we can ask them to get their sources first before they enter the class. But the question is, are the students going to do that? Because everyone's a student, so we know that.
Yes, agreed. So now we move to the last section, which is contribution of gamification in technological education. So do you think gamification in the classroom will contribute to our technological education?
Yes, it is. We scan first. What is we lack of? Because when we talk about technology, there are first thing first. There are some families and some families they don't even can prepare the simple technologies like smartphones. Okay, a very just a low budget smartphones that compatible to use internet, to use to just make them accessible to attend the class online classroom. That's the first thing that we lack of. But when we try to think what we lack of during this MCO session, we know that a student actually need smartphones or something like smart, like tablet, maybe just a laptop, just to make them available to enter the classroom first, the online classroom. So later on, we can talk about the gamification technique using technology. So the using technology, like a simple technology, Kahoot, and there are a lot of gamification application, but some are not. Some are just way big data to store in smartphones. So contribute to our technology education, yes. I said just now, we screening first what we're lacking of, and then we try to make it better. We try to perform a solution, how to counter the problems. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So move to the last question, which is how do you think gamification in science classroom will help students to adapt with our Industrial Revolution 4.0? Why
So,
and how?
so IR 4.0, we know that when we talk about the Industrial Revolution 4.0, one thing always comes to my mind is internet, internet, internet. Okay. So, the first question, why? Yes, it is. It will help the students to adapt with our Industrial Revolution 4.0, and why? Because it is, student can learn the internet literacy. Okay. Because when we compare the youngsters nowadays, they can easily use smartphones way better than us. They can use like they can, we will watch TikTok. Example for TikTok, there are a lot of talent over there. They can make a cool video, the transition and whatnot on TikTok, and it is better than us that we as an adult we don't know how to do that. And to compare to our parents, they don't even know how to connect the internet. Okay? And somehow they ask them, their kids or their even grandchildren how to connect with the internet. Kenapa internet tak ni? Kenapa internet tak tu? Semua tu. So when we talk the IR 4.0, we can jump into the internet literacy. So this internet literacy promotes the students to know better about the device and the very teknologi masa kini. And also it promotes a lifelong learning. As we all know, in our generation, when it comes to teaching and learning, it just stopped there in the classroom. And teacher may also like, oh, please don't forget to read the textbook, read here, read that, go to the library. So we only do that in the school, and maybe we do extra classes after the schools, and that ends there. So when we talk about lifelong learning using the technology, students nowadays can access as many as the resources on the internet. You can always ask the Google how to do this, how to do that, and even how to write A using Google. They can also perform it. And YouTube, we got a lot of YouTubers shares the knowledge, so they can enhance their knowledge. So as a teacher later on, we need to be more than student because they literally spend time using phone on internet so much. So they might also have the knowledge better than us. Okay. That's all for question number 1. So that's for why. So for how, our education system need to reframe, although it is I guess it is already reframed, but they need to inject the sentimental, the IR 4.0 into the teaching and learning, and also the teachers need to apply those gamification technique. Okay, because we know that we have youngsters educator and also the veteran educator. So some of them are quite lazy, we use the word lazy, to apply the gamification technique because they say that's like quite renyah, macam leceh lah nak buat tu, nak buat ni. So I don't know, but macam perasan lah kalau dalam English movie, bila dalam setting tadika, they can always see the leaderboard on the side of the whiteboard. So whenever student answer the correct question, they will put like stars. Okay, Mike, you get 1 star for the question. Good job. They praise the student. But when we look in our Malaysia context, how many teachers done that? How many classes do we see have the leaderboards on the side of the class of the whiteboards? None. Okay? Those are simple gamification technique that doesn't use or consume any technologies. So now it is IR 4.0, we can use technologies instead of wasting our time to hias kelas, to here's the leaderboard to give 1 stars to spend to go to eco shop nak beli macam-macam semua benda, and then just to stick on the wall in the classroom. So now we have the technology. So why not we use it sangat-sangat sepenuhnya, kita changekan semua sistem yang physical system to online system, which like before this, yes, whenever it is come to examination, they got results and they can know their ranking in the class. But they just stop there. People will forget about the ranking just next 3 days. Awal-awal dia cakap, oh Tanya dapat nombor 1, besok lusa sama juga, dah tak ingat siapa ranking nombor 1. So dia motivation just stop kat situ je. So by using the technology, using internet, we can always see the ranking. So it can motivate the students, even within the class, within the school, within the batch or not. So that's the first thing we need to reframe and make sure all the teachers apply. And the second how. So like I said before, some of the families can't even afford the accessible or the compatible devices. So it is always come to the government to provide all those sort of things. And it is always problems. We cannot afford this and that, but you don't blame the family. So we need another solution, which how can we provide those stuff to the family that cannot afford all these technologies. So that's the second. So I guess
All
that's
right. Thank you, Fat, for your explanation and your sharing with our topic. And thank you for participating in our study. So I will stop recording. So bersama saya sekarang hari ini Saudara Azab, Saudari Aini dan panel kita yang dijemput khas, Saudara Daniel. Kat mana tu? Macam kat sekolah.
Rumah.
Bila nak FIFA, Daniel?
Kes dengan ibu bos. FIFA apa? FIFA online.
Sekolah baik.
Main PES online lah, PES online.
Kau main PES sekarang?
PES mobile.
Oi. Okay. Proceed Boleh, Daniel?
Boleh.
Alright. Kau dah ready lah soalan-soalan kau dah ready aja.
Ni berapa minit? Kau punya ni berapa minit anggaran?
Tak kisah pun. Kita buat scraping je nanti.
Okay. Faham?
Just record untuk ni lah. Bukti macam tu.
Faham.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, let's go for the first question. So can you tell a little bit to us what is your background of education?
Alright. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning. So, my name is Muhammad Daniel bin Zalimi. I'm from currently, for now, I'm taking chemistry program, science education in chemistry program, semester 7. Alright.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, are you involving with teaching in science related subject in the future?
InsyaAllah, if there is placement for me to teach chemistry, so I will teach chemistry. Hope so. No geography subject.
Alright, thank you. Okay, now we move to the first section, which is a common knowledge about gamification. So, can you tell what do you understand about gamification?
Alright. So, as for me, based on my understanding, of course, when you use game, of course, the elements must be in game design. So, for me, gamification is defined as a set of activities and processes to solve problems by using the characteristic of game elements. The teacher makes the hard stuff or hard question become more fun to students, so that the students find the activity or the questions much easier and easier for them to solve the questions without any struggle. That is my opinion about gamification.
All right, thank you. And do you have any experience in applying gamification in your lesson?
All right. Um, because I'm not really experienced in teaching the real classroom, right? So I'm only sharing my experience during my micro teaching during semester 4 curriculum and instruction, right? So I have implemented this kind of game named as progression games, whereby I use levels, checkpoint, uh, for my class to progress to another level. I already forget. During my semester 4, I teach them organic chemistry, carbon compound. So for my activity, I use I use this kind of game, whereby they need to answer the question level by level. So if they are managed to answer the question in level 1, so they can proceed to level 2, level 3, and so on. But if they do not manage to do so, so they will start only at the level 1. So the implication for this type of game, it will produce a students that is competitive between each other. So it makes the environment more attractive, more fun, and of course, we can get two-way communication between me as a teacher and also from the student. Right.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we move to the section 2, gamification in science classroom. Okay. List any technology you have used in the classroom or at school or in micro teaching, as you said. How do you find this technology? And is it easy to use or not?
All right. So besides I'm using the progression game, I also use as you know that the easiest one is Kahoot challenge, right? Where we can only log into the Kahoot and we can make the questions and we can set up the points and so on. And so as for me, it's quite easy. This is because as we as a university student, we be exposed to this technology. But in school, it is quite possible to do so because I believe that the students cannot bring the phone to school. So it's quite challenging for me in future as a teacher to implement this such game, Kahoot challenge, for example. Even though this kind of technology is the easiest one to conduct an activity with them. Alright. So
All right, thank you. So, what do you think of implementation? Oh, sorry, what do you think of implementation gamification in science learning? Are you ready to implement in the future?
alright. So as for me, obviously this gamification implementation will provide a lot of benefits in the classroom. One of them is, like I said before, uh, you will you will produce positive vibes to your students, and of course, learnings become visible to through progress in indicating. So students often become more comfortable in gaming environment, so they are more proactive and open to make mistakes. So this is the objective when we conducting the class. We want to know if there are students who did a mistake, so that we can approach them, so we can try to advise them to improve better. And higher engagement, obviously I need the engagement between students so that the class environment will become lively, not sadly. Yes, of course I am ready to implement this, but of course during this pandemic we conducted PDPR, right? So I believe that during this PDPR we can implement this such gamification during the class session, of course. Yes, of course I am ready to try this. Right. Any question, Pak?
Right, thank you. We're done from section 2. Now we move to the section 3, which is contribution. Think gamification in classroom will contribute to our technological education and why?
Yes, I believe that this will help a lot, is especially students and teachers. It's because as we moving forward to 21st century education, in regards with IR 4.0, of course, the students and teachers have to adapt this kind of technology. We cannot stay in one path only. We have to try various part. Of course, when we teaching the next generation, of course, the next generation is more exposed to technology, so we have to implement a lot of games, a lot of games that use technology. So I believe that in future, if this kind of gamification technology is being implemented in each of school in Malaysia, I believe that later on in examination, there's no need, paper and pen. Maybe you can use this kind of game only to assess your students. You.
Agreed, agreed. All right. Now for the last question. Do you think gamification in science classroom will help students to adapt with our industrial revolution 4.0, as you said, and why and how?
All right. So yes, I believe that I've been reading some of IR 4.0 yesterday. So this gamification technology falls into fourth IR 4.0, which is uh, we can see the expectation to change on how we work, on how we think. Because when I read the description of these four characteristic of IR 4.0, there are skills needed. So such as critical thinking, complex problem solving, and also communication skills. So by using this gamification technique or gamification implementation in the school later on, I believe that the students may fulfill this fourth IR characteristic. So of course, as we moving forward to achieve this IR 4.0, we need a students that has a higher critical thinking, complex problem solving. They can think various ways to solve the problem, and of course by using games, the mind of the students will be exposed to something that apa kata orang tu yang mereka tak jangka pun. Macam orang tak expect pun benda tu ada sebenarnya. So I believe that these types of methods we can achieve the IR 4.0 in the future.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for your sharing and for your explanation about gamification in your understanding. That's all from our sides and question. Thank you for participating and
Yeah.
willing to work with us.
Alright. Thank you.
All
See you
right,
later.
stop recording. Sekejap record sekejap. Alright. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for participating in our study. So we move to the first section, which is demographic question. The first question is, what is your background of education?
For degree, bachelor in science, major in biology.
All right, thank you. And move to the second question. Are you involving with teaching in science-related subjects in the future?
Yes, I'm major in biology for Form 4 and Form 5 student.
All right, thank you. Now we move to the section 2, common knowledge about gamification. What do you understand about gamification?
What I know is gamification is the game design element in non-game content, which the set of activity and process to solve the problem by using or apply the characteristic of game element such as badge or leaderboard.
All right, thank you for the explanation. Do you have any experience applying gamification in your lesson or in micro teaching?
Yes, I have used several gamification apps during my presentation inside the classroom.
All right, thank you. Now you move to section 3, gamification in science classroom. List any technology you have used in classroom or at school. How do you find this technology and is it easy to use or not?
Um, for the example is website and social media, such as YouTube, podcasts, and Google Classroom, Nearpod, Canvas, and Bombazi. And this technology is quite easy because to use it, it consists with the what we call list of procedure, right? To help us to use them. And this technology is very interesting to use for our education in classroom.
Okay, thank you. So what do you think of implementation gamification in science learning? Are you ready to implement it in the future?
Actually, from my opinion, I'm still 50-50. I'm not so ready to implement gamification. Now, as we can see, to implement the gamification concept in science learning, we need a lot of knowledge to implement that in classroom so that our teaching and learning will be more easily. And now I'm still learning about that to implement the gamification in science learning.
All right, thank you, thank you. So now move to the last section, contribution of gamification in technological education. So the first question is, do you think gamification in the classroom will contribute to our technological education and why?
I think yes, because as I said earlier, to implement gamification required us to gain many knowledge, especially about the technology, right? So by that, definitely we also will implement the technology in our education system. So by one or not, we'll still will implement our student with the technology during our classroom.
Okay, thank you. Last question. Do you think gamification in science classroom will help students to adapt with our industrial revolution 4.0?
Yes, of course, because now is 2020. As we can see here, during our study, we also have implemented gamification in our classroom. So the technology now in our education is also different with the previous education. By implement the gamification inside the classroom, we will help students to have a creative and critical thinking, which they will need that in their in their work job, in their school, after their education later on. So I think that will help students to adapt with themselves. I think so.
All right, thank you, Hazima, for participating and explaining to us your point of view about gamification. I hope we can work together in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay. Aini nak tanya? Ini nak tanya ke tak? Aini
Kau
tanya?
lah, kau lah dulu.
Okay, tanya. Okay.
Siapa yang mula?
Tanya soalan. Okay. For the demographic equation, can you tell me what is your background of your of education? Background
Okay.
of education.
Okay, before this, I'm taking course
pure science for my diploma at Sultan Educational University (UPSI) for 2 years, from 2015 until 2017. And now I am currently taking bachelor degree in science education, majoring in biology, with minor in chemistry at UiTM in Puncak Alam campus. I know that I wanted to be a teacher in future, so I choose a university with a strong educational program and have a broad alumni network. As we know, UiTM is the largest public university in our country, Malaysia, right? So I pursue my study in biology because I really love the biology subject. And for the minor has taught me the necessary thing in understanding a life, which is the chemistry.
Okay, okay. For the second question, actually, you already uh, answered at the first question, but it's okay. I want to ask you: are you involving the teaching in science-related subject in future?
Basically, I I have a plan to involve in teaching science in future because it's really my passion. I want to be a teacher, right? So I will use all the experiences, the knowledge, and the skill that I have learned in university to teach the future generation of our country. So I also want to change our society perception that learning science are difficult and complicated. Science is actually is very fun and interesting subject where all of you can relate to the real life situation.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we move on to section two, which is I will ask about common knowledge about gamification. Okay, the first question is, what do you understand about gamification?
Okay, based on my reading, gamification I think is the practice of using games, design element, game mechanic, and game thinking into the non-game activities to motivate the participants. Some game element that I know, such as using a point, badges, and also a leaderboard. I think this application of game mechanic into non-game activities can promote a good behavior and can drive a learning objective to the student.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for the second question, for this section is, do you have any experience in applying gamification in your lesson?
Okay, yes, I have been involved with gamification for quite some time now. What I can say, in every presentation or lesson, I will apply the gamification element. In my experience, I have found games are great in resolving several common classroom issues, such as to participate to encourage the participants, talk time, and also the student engagement. As we know, due to the pandemic of COVID-19 right now, I switched into the using the virtual gamification. For example, I am using the Bamboozle games. In this game, I will create a quiz with some questions related to the topic that have been presented, and I will divide a student into several group, and each member of the group need to work together in order to give a correct answer. If them give a correct answer, I will reward a point. If them give a wrong answer, I will deduct their point. At the last, the group with high score will be announced as a winner.
Okay, okay, very good. Okay, for this next section, I will continue.
Okay. Next section. Can you list any technology you have used in the classroom? And how do you find this technology? Is it easy to use, or if, your opinion about the technology that you have been used?
I think that the technology that I have used in classroom, such as social media or social networking, online teaching and learning, using a class blog, a wikis, using website, using a interactive whiteboard, and also using mobile devices. At the first, I found all this technology is quite difficult because I'm not so familiar with it. And after several time using and explore about this technology, I found it's easy to use. For me, during this pandemic of COVID-19, this technology can make a distance learning easier. It also allow for student to give a faster feedback and can improve the collaboration between the student in large group of people.
All right. Thank you. And next is what do you think of the implementation of gamification in science learning? Are you ready to implement in the future?
I think I think the implementation of gamification in science learning has attract students to increase their engagement and achieve learning outcome more effectively. Implementing this technology in science learning will boost up the student motivation towards science learning and promote scientific thinking. I think yes, I'm ready to implement this gamification in future with my experience, skill, knowledge, and enough exposure to this gamification method. I will ensure student learning science in fun and interactive way without forgetting the learning outcome of the topics.
All right. Thank you for the insightful answers.
All right, Fahmi. We proceed
Yes,
to the next section, which is
yes, Abang.
contribution of gamification in technological education. So for the first question, do you think the gamification in classroom will contribute to our technological education? Why you say that? Okay.
I think yes, I think gamification will contribute to the technological education. As we know, in this 21st century, the use of gamification in the classroom is growing rapidly and is always undergoing constant changes. While using with the some injection of the technology in the gamification become more interesting and entertaining, where the sound and the voice background of the gamification become more realistic. They have a perfect graphic and also have a good layout of the games. So indirectly, while applying this gamification in the classroom can help in understanding the technology and programming use, skill and understanding or in ICT knowledge also will increase among the students.
Okay, I see. So for the next question, do
Yes.
you think gamification in science classroom will help students to adapt with our industrial revolution of 4.0, which is IR 4.0? Why and how? What do you think?
I think yes, I think the student slightly will adapt the industrial revolution 4.0 when gamification be implemented in science classroom. I think this is because the student have the basic knowledge about how the technology and the games work, and they also know how the technology getting advanced toward to the future. With this fundamental knowledge and skill in the student aware the industrial revolution 4.0, if not give enough attention to that, it can cause the student left far behind in the global competition especially. So as we know, the industry revolution with the advance of supercomputers, smart robots, the driverless vehicles, genetic editing with development of neutral technology that can boost our brain. I think the student will use this gamification as their platform to make to adapt in the industrial revolution 4.0.
Okay, that's all.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Fami, for participating in our interview. Thanks for your time. That's all.
Welcome. My pleasure. It's okay.
Boleh lah.
Memang okey ke nak? Memang tanya.
Aku. Okay, sekejap
Memang macam lupa saya kenapa pula memang lupa.
Oh no. Okay, dah boleh mula?
Boleh.
Okay. Adi, what is your background of education?
Okay. Assalamualaikum sekali lagi. Bahasa Melayu kan? Nama saya Adib. Saya background of education in secondary school. I'm taking science stream and I have done my diploma in science at UiTM Tinker and then currently studying in bachelor degree science education in physics. Okay. Itu je kan?
Okay. Next question. Are you involved with teaching in science related subject in future?
Yes, I'm I'm teaching science subject in future, which is I'm teaching in physics.
Okay, now we move on to section 1, which is common knowledge about gamification. First is, what do you understand about gamification?
Okay. Apa yang saya faham dalam gamification ni in teaching kan, dia macam satu approach tau, macam an approaching. Sama juga macam inquiry approach yang kita dah belajar sebelum ni, STEM approach. So ni macam salah satu approach juga gamification, which is kita implementkan games punya elemen dalam sesuatu konteks yang bukan game. Macam tu lah.
Oh, okay. So the second question is, do you have any experience in applying gamification in your lesson?
Rasanya ada. Yang kalau in traditional way dalam sekolah dulu pernah buat quiz. Yang kita bagi-bagikan group, lepas tu jawab quiz, lepas tu tanda-tanda markah bulat ke ni, berapa markah. So mungkin itu antara salah satu gamification yang in a traditional way dalam sekolah dulu. Sebab dulu kita tak ada teknologi apa semua kan.
So how about online?
In online, dalam time degree ni lah kita implementkan quizzes dengan Kahoot. Itu yang aku tahu, yang aku pernah main lah. So tu je lah yang gamification yang online tu punya.
I see. Okay, so next is section 2. Can you list any technology you have used in the classroom or at school, like quiz other than quizzes or Kahoot, if any, and how do you find this technology, like quizzes, Kahoot, or any other tools? Is it easy to use, or what is your opinion about it?
Selain Kahoot dengan quizzes?
Kalau ada lah.
Kalau ada lah. So bagi aku rasanya tak ada kot. Satu lagi, Flipgrid. Tak tahu lah gamification ke tak. Tapi dulu pernah guna. Pernah dengar Flipgrid? So Flipgrid, Kahoot dengan quizzes lah yang pernah guna sebelum-sebelum ni. Dan benda tu I think it's good to implement in learning education punya ni proses, sebab dia macam first dia dapat ada engagement, which is the engagement with student, which is student akan enjoyable bila kita buat benda tu. Lepas tu easy to use, sebab sekarang semua dah ada phone kan, so bila tak ada masalah pun semua ada internet, so easy to use lah. And then satu lagi tu je lah kot setakat ni.
Okay, so what do you think of implementation of gamification in science learning? In your opinion, are you ready to implement gamification in the future? If you have to teach science, are you ready to integrate gamification in your teaching?
I think implementation of gamification in science learning is boleh sebenarnya, tapi dari segi teori je. Dari segi lab tu saya rasa teknologi kita belum sampai lagi tahap tu. Lepas tu kalau nak implement boleh, tapi tak semua sekolah kita boleh implement kan, sebab maybe ada school in rural areas have cannot provide in accessing internet connection kan. So ada sekolah yang ada, so jadi macam bias lah, tak seragam. And then bagi untuk aku ready untuk kalau nak implement kan untuk akan datang kan, sebab benda tu bagus kan, and then dia boleh meningkatkan lagi tahap student punya pembelajaran lah. Lepas tu tu je lah.
Tak ada. Okay. Next is section 3. Section 3, contribution of gamification in technological education. Do you think gamification in classroom will contribute to our technological education?
Ini maksudnya macam mana? Tak faham kan?
Kau rasa gamification in classroom akan contribute tak macam dari segi technological punya education juga? Sekarang kan kita cakap pasal gamification in science classroom kan, so the effect of it akan menyumbang juga kepada technological education juga?
Saya rasa menyumbang kepada technological education, sebab student akan expose dengan gamification yang diperkenalkan oleh teacher or lecturer in class. So dia akan start to adapt with education punya technological.
So maknanya bila student dah expose dekat science, gamification dalam science, so dia akan lagi pengetahuan dia tentang teknologi lain lagi ni lah.
Dia akan meningkat.
Okay. Last question is, do you think gamification in science classroom will help students to adapt with our industrial revolution of 4.0?
Do you think gamification in science classroom will help students to adapt with our industrial revolution of 4.0? Susah soalan ni.
Okay. Kalau untuk pengetahuan kau kan, untuk macam Industrial Revolution 4.0 ni, kalau kat Malaysia tu sendiri, dia mementingkan perkembangan cara berfikir budak-budak tu, ke arah teknologi punya aspek. Dia problem solving dia ke arah problem solving berasaskan teknologi ni lah. Teknologi ni. Jadi kalau contoh soalan tu kan, soalan nombor 2 yang tadi kan, soalan nombor 2 Emma. Nombor 2, do you think of implementation gamification?
Yang mana? Ni section 3 soalan 2.
Okay. Jadi yang Industrial Revolution 4.0 tu kau faham tak? Faham tak macam mana tu belajar dia macam dia ke arah tu lah. Contoh paling besar kita boleh tengok student-student KV ke, dia banyak belajar.
Kesan gamification tu kepada student tu boleh tak dia carry, dia adapt dengan Industrial Revolution 4.0 tu?
Maknanya contoh bagi contoh daripada dia belajar, dia guna gamification kan, macam dia guna games masa dia belajar tu, dia akan terfikir, oh aku pun boleh tak buat games lepas ni untuk certain part, ataupun aku guna certain gadget ni, aku akan develop tak satu lagi gadget yang aku boleh guna kat dalam bidang yang lain. Maknanya dia boleh ada benda yang dia belajar daripada gamification tu, apa yang dia dah lalui daripada gamification tu mempengaruhi tak Industrial Revolution 4.0 macam tu.
Saya rasa dia mempengaruhi Industrial 4.0 sebab gamification mostly kita guna internet kan. So Industrial 4.0 pun kita ada IoT kan, Internet of Things. So kita bergantung pada internet. Dan dalam Industrial 4.0 kan ada apa, wireless kan, apa 3G, 4G, 5G.
Ya. Tu dia punya ni lah, aspek dia lah macam tu lah.
Rasanya student boleh adapt bila kita apply.
Maksud kau student boleh relate kan,
dia boleh relate kan.